I wish I could marry her, I whispered. The alien princess heard everything. The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the black velvet of space. Among them floated the massive interstellar academy known as Aurelia Station, a hub for humans and aliens from dozens of star systems. Its halls were lined with shining metal, translucent panels, and strange glowing symbols that pulsed softly with energy. Students from countless worlds moved between classrooms and training grounds, exchanging knowledge, ideas, and subtle competition. Eli walked slowly through the quiet corridor of the academy library, a stack of textbooks pressed against his chest. His boots clicked softly on the smooth floor as he navigated between towering shelves filled with alien tomes. Humans were still a small presence here, often underestimated. The aliens around him were taller, more elegant, or strangely intimidating, with skin that shifted colors, limbs in unusual shapes, or eyes that glimmered like gemstones. Eli, with his plain human features, felt almost invisible most of the time, but he had a spark of curiosity that no one could ignore. He paused near a large observation window overlooking the station's outer ring. The planets beyond glimmered faintly, and distant ships traced silent arcs through space. Eli sighed, placing his stack of books on a nearby table. He was tired, yes, but his thoughts were somewhere else entirely. His mind wandered to Princess Lyra, the Vayari heir. She was not just a princess. She was a symbol of everything humans were told to fear or admire in aliens: grace, intelligence, and power beyond measure. Her hair, a flowing cascade of silver that reflected starlight, framed a face both regal and kind. Her eyes, a luminous violet, seemed to see far deeper than most could imagine. And yet, despite all that, Eli felt drawn to her. He whispered under his breath, almost without thinking, I wish I could marry her. The words barely left his lips before a sudden chill ran down his spine, a quiet presence behind him. He turned quickly, but the corridor was empty. He laughed nervously. Just me talking to myself, he muttered. His cheeks warmed slightly, but unknown to him, the words had reached someone they weren't meant to. Behind the wall of the observation deck, a translucent screen shimmered into view, revealing Princess Lyra herself, hidden from sight. She had been passing by, observing human students for a moment of curiosity, and had heard Eli's whispered confession. A small, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. He speaks freely, and he means it, she thought. Her violet eyes lingered on him for a moment longer before she withdrew, fading silently into the shadows. Eli had no idea. He returned to his books, nervously adjusting his glasses. His thoughts were racing, not just with fear that someone might have overheard, but with the excitement of daring to hope. Humans weren't supposed to dream of royalty in the Vayari Empire. It was almost considered dangerous. Yet, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Over the next few days, Eli's attention to his studies deepened, but so did his awareness of Lyra's subtle presence. He noticed things moving in odd ways. A book left open near his desk, a pen hovering briefly before falling. Hints of someone observing him, playful yet careful. Meanwhile, Lyra found herself thinking of the human more often than she cared to admit. The Vayari Empire had strict rules for a princess, especially one in training at Aurelia Station. She was expected to maintain distance from humans to avoid giving them any false hope. Yet something about Eli's courage, his curiosity, and his quiet confidence fascinated her. Humans were fragile compared to her people, or so she had been taught. But Eli had a spark that none of her tutors or courtiers had ever shown. The next day, during a joint human-alien lecture on interstellar engineering, Lyra found herself seated slightly closer than usual to Eli. She watched him as he worked, noting how carefully he handled alien technology, how his human hands adapted to tools made for more delicate alien fingers. She smiled faintly, impressed by his skill. Eli, unaware that the princess was paying him special attention, struggled to assemble a device that seemed to resist his every move. The other students whispered, making small bets on whether the human would succeed. He ignored them, focusing on the task. And then, finally, with a soft click, the device powered on. The tiny energy sphere hummed and glowed steadily. Eli exhaled a long, shaky breath. Not bad for a human, a voice murmured beside him. Eli froze, heart pounding. He looked up, and caught only a faint glimpse of the silhouette before it vanished around the corner. He shook his head. "Just imagining things," he muttered again. By the end of the week, rumors began circulating among the alien students about the human who whispered about the princess. Some laughed, some dismissed it as nonsense, but a few, quieter voices noticed Lyra's peculiar interest. After all, the Veyari princess rarely smiled so openly or lingered in human spaces. Eli, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the growing attention. He spent evenings in the library, poring over alien history, learning their languages, and quietly imagining a life among the stars, not as a servant, not as a scholar, but as someone who might one day stand as an equal to the princess he admired. One night, as he studied in a dim corner, Lyra approached, silent and graceful as the shadows around her. Eli barely looked up, absorbed in translating Veyari script. "Ellie," she said softly, her voice like a melody, careful not to startle him. He jumped slightly, almost knocking over his notes. "Princess Lyra," he stammered, bowing awkwardly. I didn't see you there," she smiled, a quiet amusement dancing in her violet eyes. "I've been observing you. Your work is impressive." Eli blinked. "Me? Really?" "I mean, I'm just trying my best." His words tumbled out nervously. Lyra tilted her head, studying him as one might study an intricate machine. "Humans are underestimated, aren't they?" she asked. Eli hesitated, then nodded. "Always, but I like it that way. Makes proving ourselves even better." She considered that. "Perhaps," she said softly, "I've underestimated humans too." The hours passed quickly, though it felt like minutes. They spoke quietly about projects, star systems, and the challenges of living on Aurelia Station. Eli felt his nerves ease. Speaking to her was not terrifying as he had imagined, but exhilarating. He could see intelligence and curiosity in her eyes, an understanding that humans often thought aliens lacked. As the library lights dimmed, Lyra finally rose. "You should rest, Eli. Your mind will need strength for the days ahead." He stood, heart racing. "Thank you, Princess." He stopped, unsure how to phrase the thoughts that had been swirling for days. She tilted her head, expecting him to continue. I wish I could be worthy of someone like you," he whispered, almost under his breath. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Lyra smiled softly, a private smile meant only for him. She stepped back and disappeared quietly, leaving Eli staring after her, uncertain whether he had imagined it all. The next morning, Eli returned to the corridor where he had first whispered his wish. He pressed his hand against the cool metal wall, thinking of Lyra. A soft voice echoed in his mind, though no one was there. "Perhaps you already are, in ways you do not yet know." Days turned into weeks. Eli's skills grew, as did his quiet courage. Each time he encountered a problem, mechanical, theoretical, or personal, he faced it head-on, learning not just from textbooks, but from the subtle observations and whispers of encouragement from someone who believed in him, someone very unexpected. Lyra, meanwhile, continued to watch him from a distance. Her advisors noticed the frequent glances toward the human, but said nothing. A part of her knew this was dangerous, perhaps reckless, but another part of her, the part that loved curiosity and intelligence above all else, could not look away. Eli, oblivious to how deeply he had already affected her thoughts, continued to dream quietly in his corner of the academy. Dreams of exploration, of invention, and of bridging the impossible distance between human and alien. And somewhere in the shadows, Princess Lyra smiled, wondering how the fragile human had managed to capture the attention of someone who had seen centuries of history, countless rulers, and endless wonders, and yet found herself captivated by the simplest human courage. And so, the seed was planted, a quiet wish whispered into the vastness of the academy. Woo the days on Aurelia Station passed with a rhythm both familiar and unpredictable. Students from dozens of star systems went about their studies, but for Eli, each moment seemed heavier with anticipation. He moved through the academy halls with quiet determination, fully focused on his work, yet always aware of the possibility that someone, or something, might be watching. And someone was. Princess Lyra had made it a quiet habit to observe him. At first, it had been fleeting glimpses from shadowed corners or subtle movements in the corridors. But now, her curiosity had grown into something more deliberate. She would linger just long enough to notice the way he handled alien machinery, the careful precision of his hands, and the way his brow furrowed when he faced a particularly difficult problem. Humans were often seen as fragile, unpredictable, and simple-minded by alien standards. Lyra had always accepted these assumptions, just as her tutors expected her to. But Eli defied them. He thought quickly, adapted faster, and approached challenges with a determination that seemed to come from a wellspring of stubborn courage she had rarely seen. One afternoon, in the sprawling training hall, the students were assigned a collaborative project, a simulation of interstellar navigation using a mix of alien and human technology. Each group would design and test their own navigation matrix to predict the safest routes through the volatile meteor field orbiting a distant star. The exercise was meant to test both intellect and teamwork, and it was a perfect opportunity for aliens to mock human limitations. Eli's group was small, 2 human students, himself included, and a Viari student named KL, tall, sharp-eyed, and clearly convinced of human inferiority. KL barely concealed his skepticism as he studied Eli's methods. "Do you really understand how this works?" he asked, voice dripping with doubt. Eli smiled faintly, unfazed. "I'll figure it out. Just watch." Lyra, from a balcony above, observed silently. She saw the subtle interplay between the students. She noticed how Eli listened, learned, and adapted, turning mistakes into solutions. It wasn't just technical skill. There was strategy, creativity, and courage in his movements. As the simulation began, Kale and the other alien student tried to take control, insisting that Eli follow their methods. Predictably, their approach led to several near failures. Eli stepped in, calmly analyzing the situation. Using a combination of human improvisation and careful study of alien logic, he adjusted the navigation matrix. The simulated ships moved with precision, avoiding collisions and completing the exercise ahead of schedule. A murmur ran through the observing students. Kale's pride faltered. Eli didn't gloat. He simply nodded and returned to his work. From above, Lyra's eyes softened. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as they seem," she whispered to herself, almost as if confessing a secret. Word of Eli's success spread quietly among the students. Aliens who had once dismissed humans began to pay attention, and though many of them were careful not to say it aloud, a few even began to take notes on his methods. Days later, Eli noticed subtle changes in his surroundings. A device he had left in the library had been adjusted slightly, making it easier for him to understand. Notes he had misread were clarified with annotations in a careful, precise hand. At first, he assumed a helpful classmate had intervened. But then, small signs became undeniable. Someone was deliberately guiding him, carefully, secretly. One evening, Eli stayed late in the observatory lab, running simulations of star charts. He was alone, or so he thought, when a soft voice startled him. "Eli." He turned sharply, heart pounding, only to see Lyra stepping from behind the observation panels, her presence quiet yet commanding. "Princess Lyra," he exclaimed, almost dropping his datapad. She smiled, a mixture of amusement and approval in her violet eyes. "You work tirelessly," she said, "and yet you remain calm under pressure. That is admirable." Eli rubbed the back of his neck, nervous. I just try to do my best." Lyra moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you always speak to yourself like that?" He hesitated. "Sometimes." "It helps me think." She tilted her head. "And what do you whisper now?" He swallowed. He didn't want to reveal everything, but he felt an unexpected honesty. I wish I could make a difference. I wish I could prove that humans are more than what others see." Lyra's eyes softened. "You already do, even now, in ways you do not realize." Eli blinked. Her words were unexpected. They carried weight, encouragement, and a strange sense of validation. "You really think so?" he asked quietly. Lyra smiled. "I see courage where others see weakness. I see ingenuity where others see mistakes. That is worth noticing." From that moment, a secret understanding developed between them. They began to communicate through subtle gestures, notes left in the lab, and careful observation. Each encounter was brief, measured, and cautious, but each one deepened their connection. However, not everything was simple. The rules of the Veyari Empire were strict, especially regarding interactions between a princess and humans. Courtiers and advisors would be quick to punish any perceived impropriety. Lyra struggled with the tension between duty and curiosity. She had been trained to maintain distance, to avoid favoritism, to appear untouchable. Yet Eli's presence made those rules feel arbitrary. He was clever, kind, and fearless in ways she had not anticipated. One afternoon, as the sun's twin rays cast long shadows across the academy gardens, Lyra and Eli met at a secluded spot. The garden was a masterpiece of alien botany. Bioluminescent flowers, floating pollen spheres, and fountains that shimmered with liquid crystal. It was a rare moment of peace amid the station's bustling schedule. "I never thought a human could appreciate this," Lyra said softly, gesturing to the garden. "Most of my peers see only the surface." Eli smiled, crouching to examine a strange flower that pulsed like a heartbeat. "It's beautiful," he said, "but I like that it's unpredictable. You never know what it will do next." Lyra laughed softly, the sound like a chime. "You notice things others do not. That is unusual for humans. And rare for anyone, really." They spoke for hours in hushed tones, sharing stories of their worlds, dreams, and ideas. Lyra told them about the responsibilities of being a princess, the expectations, the scrutiny, the weight of her people's eyes. Eli spoke of humanity's struggles, their perseverance, and the quiet ingenuity that often went unnoticed by the galaxy. Each moment together deepened Lyra's curiosity. The more she learned about humans, the more she realized how little her people truly understood them. And Eli, unaware of the full impact he had, continued to approach life with simple honesty, courage, and intelligence. But tension was never far away. The whispers of other students grew. Some noticed the subtle exchanges, the secret notes, the hints of connection. Not all of them were friendly. Kale, the Veyari student who had doubted Eli from the start, began to whisper to others about the princess showing favoritism. Lyra felt the pressure mounting. One day, her advisor, a tall, angular Veyari with sharp eyes, approached her in the training hall. "Princess," he said, voice low, "your attention toward that human student is being noticed. Be cautious. The court does not forgive mistakes." Lyra nodded, her mind conflicted. "I understand," she said, though her heart disagreed. That night, she returned to the balcony overlooking the academy. Below, Eli worked late, completely absorbed in his project. She watched him quietly, noting the way his hands moved over alien devices, how his brow furrowed in concentration, and the quiet determination in his posture. A part of her wanted to call out, to tell him to stop, to avoid attention. But another part, the part that saw humanity's potential, that recognized courage and intelligence when it appeared, urged her to wait, to observe, to trust him. Days later, Eli stumbled upon a strange, small holographic device left in the lab. It projected a simple message: "Keep going. You are doing well." He froze, heart racing. For a moment, he considered the possibility that someone had discovered his notes, his whispers, his thoughts. But the handwriting, or rather, the holographic pattern, was unmistakably alien, careful, deliberate. Only someone highly intelligent and observant could have left it. A thrill ran through him. Someone believed in him. Someone was noticing his effort in ways he had never imagined. That night, as he lay in his quarters gazing at the stars through a wide observation window, Eli whispered softly to himself again, "I wish I could meet her properly. I wish I could show her everything I can do." Unseen, Lyra was nearby, in her own quarters, gazing at the stars from her balcony. A small smile played on her lips. "And you will," she whispered, almost to herself. "In time, you will." The human and the princess continued their silent, forbidden dialogue. No one else knew, yet both felt the connection growing, bridging the gap between species and expectations. And all the while, Eli's courage, curiosity, and humanity continued to shine, slowly changing the way one princess, and perhaps one day, the galaxy, viewed humans. Weeks passed since Eli and Princess Lyra had established their quiet, secret understanding. Aurelia Station continued its endless rhythm of classes, projects, and training exercises, but the tension in the air was palpable. The whispers of other students had grown, and some of the Veari nobility began to take notice of the unusual interest the princess showed in a human. Eli, unaware of just how close to danger he walked, continued his work diligently. His evenings were filled with simulations, designs, and experiments, often pushing alien technology to its limits. He didn't seek recognition. He only wanted to prove that humans were clever, adaptable, and capable, even among the galaxy's most advanced species. Lyra observed him quietly, always from a distance, always careful. She had begun to understand the subtle ways humans approached problems, the way their persistence and ingenuity often defied expectations. And in that, she saw something rare, a mind that could match or even surpass the disciplined brilliance of the Veari elite. It was during preparations for an interstellar diplomatic event that their quiet connection would face its first true test. Aurelia Station was hosting a grand gathering, a meeting of representatives from dozens of star systems where alliances, trade agreements, and military pacts would be discussed. Lyra had been assigned to host and attend, representing the Veari Empire with grace and authority. Eli had been invited to the event due to his recent work on advanced navigation systems, human ingenuity that had saved a research vessel during a training exercise. It was rare for a human to be included in such gatherings, and whispers about his presence spread quickly. Some aliens were skeptical, others openly dismissive. The grand hall of the station was breathtaking. Towering windows overlooked distant stars, while sleek platforms and floating walkways carried diplomats in elegant motion. Holographic displays showed star charts, trade data, and planetary statistics. Every detail reflected wealth, power, and sophistication. Eli felt small and out of place as he stepped onto the platform. Human uniforms simple compared to the elaborate garb of alien nobility. He glanced around nervously, trying to focus on the purpose of the gathering. It was not just a demonstration of skill. It was a place where a single mistake could bring embarrassment, or worse, political tension. Lyra noticed him immediately. She approached carefully, masking her attention as part of the ceremony. Her violet eyes met his for a brief moment, offering reassurance. Eli felt a flicker of confidence. Even amidst alien scrutiny, he could do this. The event began with formal speeches, discussions of interstellar trade, and diplomatic formalities. The diplomats spoke of peace, cooperation, and exploration, but soon, an unexpected situation arose. A malfunction in the station's central navigation array, threatening the simulations and data being presented. Aliens murmured in panic. The array controlled the display of star charts and trade routes. If it failed entirely, the event would descend into chaos, embarrassing the Veari Empire and humbling the Assembly's leaders. Many of the alien representatives stepped back, unsure how to fix the problem. They were brilliant, but their brilliance often relied on precision and established protocol. Improvisation was rarely part of their skill set. Eli stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "I can help," he said, voice steady despite the tension. Several aliens looked at him incredulously. "A human," one whispered. "Do you think he can manage the central array?" Eli ignored them. He scanned the complex holographic interface, noting connections, energy flows, and feedback loops. His mind worked quickly, combining human improvisation with knowledge of alien logic. He adjusted nodes, rerouted circuits, and applied solutions that were simple yet elegant, often ignoring conventions that the Veari would have considered reckless. Slowly, the array stabilized. The holographic star charts flickered, then returned to full function. Trade routes, data displays, and navigation grids flowed seamlessly across the hall once more. The murmurs of doubt turned into astonishment. Lyra's eyes sparkled with admiration. Here was the human she had seen all along. Not fragile, not weak, but capable, quick-thinking, and fearless. And in that moment, she understood why she had been drawn to him from the beginning. The diplomats quietly acknowledged Eli's contribution, though not all were willing to openly praise a human. Some whispered that he had been lucky, while others grudgingly noted his skill. but Lyra made sure to speak on his behalf, offering subtle recognition that elevated him without breaking protocol. After the crisis, the event continued. Though the atmosphere had shifted, aliens who had dismissed humans now regarded them with new curiosity. And for Eli, the experience was transformative. He realized that courage and intelligence could shine even under the strictest scrutiny and against the highest expectations. During a brief recess, Lyra approached Eli again, walking alongside him in a secluded corridor. "You handled that impressively," she said softly. "I never expected a human to respond so quickly." Eli shook his head. "I just did what made sense. I didn't think about species or expectations. I just acted." Lyra smiled faintly, violet eyes thoughtful. "That is precisely what makes humans remarkable. You do not rely on reputation, tradition, or fear. You rely on thought and courage." Eli's heart raced. No alien had ever spoken to him like this, not just with politeness, but with genuine admiration. "Thank you," he whispered. It means a lot." The corridor was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the station's energy conduits. For a moment, they walked in silence, understanding passing between them without words. But the peace was fragile. Kale, still resentful of Eli's accomplishments, had quietly observed the interaction from a nearby alcove. He whispered to a fellow student, sowing doubt and jealousy. "The princess is showing favoritism. It is dangerous. A human has no place in her attention." Lyra, unaware of Kale's machinations for the moment, continued to guide Eli through subtle gestures, offering advice, encouragement, and challenges that pushed him further. She was careful, always careful, but each encounter strengthened the bond between them. That night, Eli returned to his quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. He reviewed the events of the day repeatedly, analyzing what he had done, how he had acted, and how he might improve. Humans were often underestimated, yes, but perhaps that was their greatest advantage. While others relied on strict protocols and fear of failure, humans adapted, improvised, and found solutions in unexpected ways. Lyra, meanwhile, stood on her balcony, looking out at the stars. Her heart and mind were conflicted. She was bound by duty, tradition, and the eyes of her people. Yet the human had shown her something she had not expected. That courage, ingenuity, and honesty could transcend species, protocols, and centuries of expectation. Over the following days, the tension between human and alien, between duty and curiosity, grew. Eli continued his studies with renewed vigor, unaware of just how much he had shifted perceptions. Lyra continued her careful observation, testing his limits and subtly encouraging him to rise higher. Small victories came often. Eli solved complex simulations faster than expected, suggested improvements to alien technology that no Viari had considered, and continued to demonstrate courage in situations that required quick thinking. Each success was noticed, recorded, and discussed quietly among the diplomats and students. But with recognition came risk. Rumors spread, whispers grew louder, and Lyra found herself under subtle pressure from advisors who warned that human favoritism could threaten her reputation. The very thing that had drawn her to Eli, their shared curiosity and mutual respect, was now a source of tension. One evening, as Eli worked late in the lab, a shadow fell across his table. He looked up and froze. Lyra stepped forward, eyes serious. "There are those who watch us," she said quietly. "Some will try to interfere, to punish, or to prevent what is developing here." Eli's brow furrowed. "Us? But what can we do?" She shook her head. "We cannot stop them from observing, but we can act carefully, wisely, and bravely. You have already proven your courage, Eli. Now we must ensure it is not wasted." For a moment, they simply stared at each other. The unspoken truth hung between them. Their connection, though secret, had already begun to change the course of events in ways neither could fully predict. Eli nodded, determination burning in his chest. "Then I'll do whatever it takes." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "And I will help in ways that only a princess can." The following days brought new challenges, complex simulations, high-stakes tests, and whispered warnings from those who disapproved of human involvement. Yet Eli thrived under pressure. He adapted, improvised, and continued to shine, even when the odds seemed stacked against him. Lyra watched him with pride, fascination, and a growing sense of something she had not anticipated. Admiration mixed with something more personal. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were also bold, clever, and unafraid to challenge expectations. And Eli embodied every one of those qualities. The diplomatic event had been just the beginning. What lay ahead would test them both. Human and princess, student and royalty, observer and participant. But if the past weeks had shown anything, it was this. Courage, intelligence, and honesty could create bonds that even centuries of tradition and prejudice could not break. And as Eli lay in his quarters that night, gazing at the stars through the wide observation window, he whispered softly once more, "I wish I could do even more, for her and for everyone who doubts us." Unseen, Lyra watched from her own balcony, the twin suns casting long shadows across the station. "You already do," she whispered. "And soon, the galaxy will see it too." The morning sun of Aurelia Station spilled gold and silver light across the observation decks. Eli stood at the edge of the training platform, his eyes tracing the distant stars as if they held answers only he could see. The events of the past weeks had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. He was no longer just a student. He had become a symbol of human potential, even if the galaxy did not yet realize it. Princess Lyra approached quietly, her footsteps soft against the metallic floor. Eli felt a familiar flutter in his chest, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She stopped a few feet away, her violet eyes bright and focused. "The council has requested your presence," Lyra said, her voice calm but serious. "They want to observe you again. This human ingenuity of yours. They are curious, and some are doubtful." Eli exhaled slowly. "Curious, yes. Doubtful, definitely. But I think I can do this." Lyra nodded. "I believe in you. Remember, your strength is not just skill, but courage, and courage does not need permission." The council chamber was massive, a dome-shaped room filled with representatives from dozens of species. Holographic screens floated in the air, displaying star charts, data, and simulations of complex trade and travel systems. At the center of the room sat the Vayari Council, their faces expressionless and their eyes sharp, assessing every detail. Eli stepped forward, holding the device he had been developing for weeks. It was a navigation enhancement system designed to prevent collisions in crowded star lanes, combining human improvisation with Vayari precision. The council's murmurs were audible. Some doubted, some were curious, and a few whispered warnings to each other about the risks of relying on a human. Lyra remained at his side, a silent anchor. She had carefully orchestrated this moment, ensuring that Eli's abilities would shine while minimizing political risk. "Trust yourself," she whispered. "You have earned this." Eli took a deep breath. He had trained for moments like this, though never with an entire interstellar council watching. With careful hands, he activated the device. Streams of data cascaded into the holographic displays, calculations flashing across screens faster than the eye could follow. A sudden anomaly appeared, a simulated collision in a densely populated trade lane. Alien representatives gasped. Many expected failure. Eli paused for only a moment, analyzing the data. Then, calmly, he adjusted several parameters, rerouted virtual traffic, and created a new algorithm that synchronized ships' paths with perfect precision. The simulated collision vanished. The display flowed smoothly, elegantly, almost effortlessly. Silence filled the room. Eyes widened. The council, accustomed to alien methods and protocols, realized that a human had not only solved the problem, but had done so in a way no alien mind had predicted. Lyra's heart swelled with pride. Eli, her human, had not only succeeded, he had surpassed expectation. The chamber erupted in applause. Some aliens still murmured in disbelief, but most were openly impressed. Whispers spread quickly. Humans were more capable than anyone had thought. Eli's quiet courage and ingenuity had shifted perception in a single demonstration. Kale, the Vayari student who had doubted him from the start, looked pale and furious. He could not understand how a human had achieved what he had failed to accomplish. His smug confidence had crumbled, replaced by reluctant admiration. After the session, Lyra led Eli to a quiet balcony overlooking the stars. The twin suns cast long shadows, painting the station in hues of gold and violet. Eli exhaled, his heart still racing. I can't believe it, he said. I actually did it. Lyra smiled, placing a hand gently on his arm. You always believed you could, didn't you? That is what made the difference. Not luck, not chance. You believed and acted. Eli laughed softly, a mixture of relief and wonder. I never imagined humans could be noticed like this. Not here, not by them. Lyra's eyes softened. Humans are underestimated. That is your greatest strength. Courage, creativity, and honesty. They cannot be predicted, controlled, or easily dismissed. You have reminded the galaxy of that. Eli felt a warmth spread through him. Not from the sun or the station's energy fields, but from something deeper, recognition, respect, and a quiet pride in his species. Humans were small in number, fragile by alien standards, but their hearts, minds, and courage were limitless. Lyra looked at him intently. And there is something else, Eli, something more personal. He blinked. More? Yes, she said softly. I heard what you whispered when we first met. About wishing you could marry me. And I? She hesitated, as though the weight of her words could ripple through the galaxy itself. I wanted you to know that it mattered. That I have seen you. Not just your skills, but your heart. Eli's chest tightened. His mind raced. You mean that? Lyra nodded. I do, but our world is not yet ready. Rules, tradition, expectation, they cannot be ignored lightly. Still, I believe that what we have started here is only the beginning. They stood in silence, watching stars drift past. For a moment, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. The bond they had formed was stronger than titles, politics, or species. The weeks that followed brought small but meaningful victories. Eli's contributions to navigation systems, engineering designs, and problem-solving were recognized quietly at first, then publicly in certain circles. Human ingenuity was no longer dismissed. It was respected, even sought after. Lyra played her part carefully, ensuring that Eli's accomplishments reflected well on both him and the Veyari Empire. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between rules and progress, secrecy and recognition. One evening, as the station glowed under the light of distant nebulae, Eli and Lyra walked through the Academy gardens once more. The floating pollen spheres drifted gently around them, shimmering softly in the twilight. I never imagined humans could make such a difference, Lyra said, her voice quiet but full of meaning. Not just for themselves, but for others as well. Eli smiled. We do what we must. We don't always have the strength of armies or centuries of experience, but we have this. He gestured to his heart, then to hers. Courage, creativity, willingness to try, even when everything says we shouldn't. Lyra's smile widened, and in that, humans have shown the galaxy something it has long forgotten. That small, determined hearts can shape the stars. For Eli, the words resonated deeply. He realized that his wish, the simple desire to be seen, to be heard, to matter, had come true in ways he could never have imagined. He had not only proven himself as a human, but had shown that humanity's greatest strength lay not in raw power, but in intelligence, courage, and heart. As night fell over Aurelia Station, Lyra took his hand gently. Perhaps the galaxy is not ready for us to be together fully, she whispered. But it is ready to see the value of humans, and that is only the beginning. Eli squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth he had never known. Then we will be ready when the time comes, he said firmly. Together. The stars outside the observation window twinkled like scattered diamonds, indifferent yet magnificent. But within the quiet of the station, something remarkable had shifted. Humans were no longer underestimated. A princess had seen one for who he truly was, and in doing so, the galaxy began to see them differently. And Eli, a simple human student with curiosity, courage, and an unwavering heart, had sparked a change that would ripple across worlds. He whispered softly, almost to himself, I wish I could reach the stars, and I will. Lyra's eyes met his, a promise in her gaze. And I will be with you, always, in ways that matter. The galaxy continued its endless dance, stars and planets moving in predictable arcs. But on Aurelia Station, a small corner of the universe had changed forever. Human ingenuity, courage, and heart had proven their value, and a quiet bond, built on trust, admiration, and shared dreams, hinted at a future where humans and aliens could meet not just as equals, but as partners. The story of Eli and Lyra was only beginning, but already it was a story that would be remembered. The human had been underestimated. The princess had challenged tradition, and together they had reminded the galaxy of something it had almost forgotten, that courage, intelligence, and heart are forces more powerful than any star. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, where the hum of distant ships and the glow of distant suns filled the void, two souls, human and alien, stood together, daring to dream, daring to change, and daring to shine.